Hello, everybody, and welcome to At the Table with Tom and Eric, a show about the people who play games. And I still have to read this. You think I'd have it memorized by now?
I think you actually did it just fine. All you need to do is introduce yourself.
I'm Tom Vassell.
And I'm Eric Summerer. Our guest at the table today is the CEO of Fireside Games, as well as the designer of games such as Bears and The Village Crone. Please welcome Anne-Marie De Witt. Hello, Anne-Marie.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Welcome, welcome. We, all three of us, were at Dice Tower West just a week or so ago. I saw you very, very briefly on your way to and from. There were a lot of people there. What was the final number, Tom, of people at the event?
Including everyone, like exhibitors and everyone, 3,050. 3050.
Wow,
but it never felt overly crowded, which was good. Well, except at the flea market. But that's going to be fixed. Yeah, it went pretty well. I was really happy. I mean, other than not being able to talk. We had some fun shows. We got to see a ton of people. And it feels like conventions. Can I say that's the thing that brings convention season in? Even we're not the first, though. But we can feel like the first.
Excellent. Anne-Marie, what were you up to during the event?
Well, I was taking care of business in the mornings, and then in the afternoons, I would come down and play games and see some of my publisher friends who are exhibitors and hang out with them, play some of their games, try to pick up games otherwise, and see how Justin was doing. He was playtesting the prototype of our next game, so.
Okay, very cool. So you were like up in the room or the suite, just sort of doing business, doing the office thing, and then you got to play in the afternoons.
Exactly, yeah.
Excellent. Well, it's always great to start with our same general idea when we talk with a guest here on the show. We want to get a sense of where you come from.
But before we do that, I wanted to make a call out for the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund.
Yes.
The auction is going on currently right now on Board Game Geek with hundreds of items that you can bid on, and all the money goes to charity. Or you can put up an item yourself, and the money goes to charity. Lots of cool things, from games to game promos to game pieces to a Roman coin to people painting your miniatures to stamps. There's all kinds of cool stuff there.
Very cool.
Very, very cool. Excellent. So, Anne-Marie, where did you grow up and where are you now?
Well, I grew up in basically small towns and suburbs from Texas to Oklahoma to Illinois to Indiana. So moved around quite a bit. And I would say my formative memories are kind of as a small child in Kaufman, Texas, outside of Dallas. And then as a teenager growing up, a lot of those formative memories are in Mishawaka, Indiana. So those two places.
Mishawaka.
Yeah, Mishawaka. Outside of South Bend.
Yes. I mean, South Bend is basically right over the border from Michigan, so that's an area I know pretty well. I grew up in Kalamazoo, so yeah, that's
I'm just hearing a bunch of made-up names.
No.
I grew up in, I don't know. I was about to say one of the Dr. Seuss names, and then I couldn't remember any of them. Whoville. That's the only one I remember.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So were games always a part of your childhood?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We play games as a family. It's strange to me to think of there being families that don't play games. I don't, to me, that's not, it's like, what type of games do you play? Yeah, I mean, I remember playing Monopoly with my grandmother. She would stay up until 2 o'clock with us, finishing out a game. And then later she would play Mario Brothers with us too. She even played video games with us. But the game that I remember the most though was this game called Electronic Detective. Do you know this game?
I do.
Only vaguely.
Yeah. Okay. So it was like this computer thing that had it basically had answers to different questions that were on these cards, and so you're trying to kind of find out who done it, who committed, I guess it was a murder, I'm not sure what the premise was now, but you had all these little cards and you would pull out a card and it was like a person and you're asking that person these questions, and so it was like 20 questions where you're asking binary questions, and then the you would punch it into the number into the computer, and then it would pop up with what the response was, and you would try to narrow it down to the right person. I just loved that game.
Didn't those use like punch cards in them?
I don't remember there being a punch card. I remember like.
I might be mixing this up with another game.
Okay, yeah.
I seem to remember punch cards as well, but we might be thinking of the same. Maybe there was a detective and an electronic detective.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm not remembering that right, but yeah, that's I do remember loving playing that game. So I remember punching in something. Maybe there was one with punch cards first, and then maybe the next.
I want this game now, even though it's old and probably doesn't work very well.
I know. I looked for it a few years ago, and it was selling for like, I don't know, hundreds of dollars. I didn't want it that much, but
seems like one of those that those companies that maybe bring back old games could look at and investigate.
Restoration games. Yeah.
Yes. So did you like the mystery part, or did you like the gadget part of the game?
I had both. I liked both. I felt like the gadget allowed a lot more flexibility with the gameplay. That if you were trying to kind of mock that up as in an analog, you wouldn't be able to get to, in a satisfying way. So, but yeah, it was the deduction. I loved Clue, so, being able to have deduction with that gadget element was really appealing.
Yeah, so one of the comments said we're thinking of lie detector with the punch cards, but that's not it either. That does have punch cards, but they only have one hole in them. There was one that had multiple holes in it.
Yeah.
These are all vague memories. I'm not sure exactly if I dreamed it up. So, at what point was this not just something that you did at home, but like a hobby that you embraced?
I would say I think it was the year 1999 or 2000, we played Settlers of Catan, as it was known then, with some friends, and our minds were blown. We couldn't believe what had happened to, board games. And so we started playing every weekend with those friends, different games. And then Justin, who was raised, he was an only child growing up, and he would, to entertain himself, make different games. Like he saw Tron and he made a Light Cycles game because he thought for sure there was a Light Cycles game. So he went to the store to get one. And it was like, where's the Light Cycles game? There's not one. So he created one himself, and he made games as a kid to entertain himself. Kind of through his childhood, and then video games came around, and he kind of just played video games. And then when we played Settlers of Catan, we were like, he was just really. Re-inspired to design games. And so that's when he started working on a bunch of different games, including Castle Panic. And at the time, Castle Panic was in an old pizza box, and we had like the circular part of the board on top of it, and it was just this, red, green, and blue, just kind of scratched in crayon. And, the swordsmen, knights, and archers, rings were just scrawled in hand. And then inside the pizza box, he had all the cards and the monster tokens and all of that. And so we'd bring this pizza box with, all the other, game, the published friends' houses. And more often than not, that, that started getting requested. And then it started being the first game that was requested. And we realized, like, there's really something here, So that's really what got it started.
So did you try and shop Castle Panic around to other publishers before deciding to take the leap yourself?
We thought about it, and Justin was working at Steve Jackson Games. He met Phil Reed, who wasn't the CEO at the time. He was, I think, the production manager at the time, and they met on an online chat thing, designing games together. And so he was working there, and we thought about it. But we realized like the feel of Castle Panic didn't really fit the brand of Steve Jackson Games. And we started kind of looking at the other brands that were out there, and we thought it didn't really fit any brand that was there. And we looked at the rest of the games that he'd been designing, and we realized we kind of have a catalog here and our own feel. So we really felt like, that because there wasn't a good home for it, that we should just, start our own publishing company, since we felt like it really stood apart.
So let me ask you this. So if you could go back in time, and if this happened today, do you think you would go to Kickstarter first? All things being equal?
Yeah, knowing what I know now, and with if the industry, having to take it all as a whole, I would approach another publisher first, and and have that. But assuming that there's a publisher that has the right range for the games, and then encourage Kickstarter as part of that model. But now, being publishers and looking at the market opportunities, we definitely would go to Kickstarter first with a game, even a family-friendly game.
Well, I got to say, when this game came out, it was almost you almost had no competition in some ways. There was very few light cooperative games. There was fewer cooperative games in general, but few light family ones. And this one immediately shot to the best-selling lists of many stores that I talked to at the time. They said that this game kind of came out of nowhere and was consistently doing really well. Were you surprised? I mean, this is honest. I mean, people don't always know numbers behind everything, but this game has done very well.
Yeah, it really has. I mean, we were surprised, but we also had kind of done a lot of legwork. On our vacations, we would go to different game stores and we would play the game and show it. And so we had done some grassroots work letting, retailers know about it. But we were, even so, we didn't know how successful that would be. So yeah, we were really surprised.
Were there design decisions that you made that specifically targeted this family market? Cooperative games always sort of do well with families, but Castle Panic in particular seems to really land with the the mixed ages family dynamic. Was that a conscious decision to head that way?
At the time, no. It was designed just as like fun for adults because that's who we were playing it with and having fun with. And at the beginning, there wasn't a distinction, in terms of the players and we had just, and I think still to a certain degree, we have, a lot of adults who enjoy just playing it together and, and then additionally the family market. So we really just focused on, what's fun to us, and we like that. We prefer that kind of casual, game play.
So how do you deal with the fact that your first game was and still is like the defining game of your company? Does that make it harder to design other games, or do you want to put all your effort into this game? Because now you're coming out with, soon we're getting the mega deluxe version of this? Yeah,
exactly. Well, so the hardest part of starting with a hit is that changes your expectation. You don't know what normal is, And so with every subsequent game, especially like the second one, it was like, well, it's going to do like that first one did, and so you just kind of, it blows your expectations, and it's hard to kind of get your feet under you, to figure out how best to, kind of create the brand and what's the next best move with the next game. And so we had to do a lot of learning kind of after that first game, because success doesn't teach you a whole lot. And it does, I think right now it does, and we have, strategically gotten behind, the second edition of Castle Panic and Deluxe Castle Panic and really kind of hammering home that brand. For one thing, because the market is so saturated, and we want to make sure that we have this kind of sphere of marketing where we're really kind of cutting with with this game and making sure that we have so many people new to the hobby that they're aware of what a great game it is. So we've been focusing on that, but meanwhile, working on some games in the background and having some follow-ups. And once we finish kind of this relaunch, we'll be moving on, to other games and developing other games that fit that casual brand.
Now you made casual games. Your first one, Castle Panic, was your second one Bears?
Our second one was Bloodsuckers.
Bloodsuckers. Okay, then Bears. But you made these, like you said, casual games, family games that are out there. And you're in the middle and have even been on the board of an industry that really pushes heavier games. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like an anomaly in there? I mean, there really isn't many companies, at least in the hobby market side of things, that really focus on family games.
Yeah. I think we are an anomaly, and I'm glad of it. There are a lot of people who enjoy casual games that are looking for games for the family that go into the retailer store and are looking for advice. I mean, that's where, having great relationships with the retailers has helped so much, because for a lot of retailers, Castle Panic is the first family game, first casual game that they, suggest to people because they know it's a reliable, good time. A lot of the heavier games, when you're talking about players that are getting into that level of play, they start to migrate away from game stores and they start to look at, online options. They're starting to look at, how can I spread my dollars out? And so they look at discounts and that sort of thing. And they're not as reliant on, information from the retailers. And so, sitting in that space, we're able to, continue to have great sales because of, what we offer the retailers and what they offer our brand.
So there have been, in the past several years, themed versions of Castle Panic. I'm thinking of Munchkin and Star Trek. Did you enjoy that experience? I'm looking for an opportunity. I really loved Star Trek Panic. That was a great game. Is that an experience you enjoyed, or do you like the freedom of working with your own IPs? Because I know that can be a little limiting when you're working with somebody else's stuff.
Oh, we loved it. And we will see some future things. I can't make any announcements now, but yeah.
Marvel Panic is coming to you. Stop the presses.
Tell me what IPs you want to see. We really enjoy that. It's really fun to take another brand and think about what is if there's a Venn diagram between that brand and the Castle Panic brand, what sits in the middle, and how do those interact? Like doing that with Munchkin Panic was especially fun for me since I designed that hybrid, because I could see that it was the card combos. You think Munchkin and you think backstabbing, you think Castle Panic, you think friendly fun, it's like how do those feels, go together, and it's really through the card combos and kind of changing up some of the end conditions and allowing people to actually join the monsters and take down the towers when they're ahead. So, kind of blending those brands is really fun.
You mentioned that you've done design work as well as the CEO role. Do you appreciate getting to get your hands dirty in the design space, or do you like having the more overarching, I'm in control of the whole thing from start to finish role?
I enjoy both of them for those different reasons. I have not been able to. The business of board games has gotten so demanding that I haven't been able to have a minute to set aside the business to really focus on game design again. And I would love, to be able to have more of a separation. It's just, I feel like I just work on the business 24/7. And I think most publishers are feeling that way right now. But I do like, both of those things for the different reasons. But I would say when they're working well, I enjoy them both. When one or the other's not working well, I wish I were doing the other.
So I mentioned earlier you were on the Gamma board for a while, and you've been involved in the industry in many different ways. Why do you think our gaming industry, does not put as big of a a priority on family games? And what can we do to change that?
That's a great question. I mean, I think it's probably because most people in the hobby have gotten they think of getting deeper into the hobby means getting crunchier gameplay, and there's been kind of an emphasis on I just want to say that they're like bona fides around like how deep and how hard can you play. I think that's pulling back now though, and I think that people are kind of finding their strata and where they enjoy playing. But I think that the sales have kind of followed that trend. And once you have once you have kind of a captive audience, and that's where the market, that sweet spot is, you want to just keep hitting that sweet spot. The problem is then you get oversaturation, and then it's harder for any game to really be successful long term because you've got so many trying to hit that same target. And it's harder to acquire new customers. It costs more to acquire new customers, and I think the perception has been that you're either going harder, deeper, crunchier with that gameplay, or you're trying to acquire new customers. But like I said, I really think that the trend is shifting where people are kind of tired. They want to play like fun party games. They kind of want just a casual game, like I know I can think harder than this. I don't have to prove it. I just have fun, and so I do think that there are a lot of opportunities. Now, I did suggest to Gamma, their marketing committee, I suggested that what we really need for the organization to do is while each of the individual companies are trying to market and advertise for their own brands and their own companies, what we need at an organizational level is to promote board gaming against other hobbies, against movies, against music, against theater, against we need our own like Got Milk campaign, Got Games, and kind of if we can raise that, use our collective dollars, through the organization to really promote the hobby as a whole, then I think that opens up the market share, the business, the whole thing for all of us. So
I'm just imagining attack ads against video games or playing frisbee outside.
Yeah.
Would you let your children go out with a frisbee? So 11 years ago, your game was featured on Will Wheaton's Tabletop, got 1.5 million views as of, today. That's pretty impressive. I'm assuming you noticed that when it happened.
We did. We sold out not only what we had in the warehouse, the next print run we had coming out, that sold out immediately, and we had to get another print run going. So, yeah, it was phenomenal.
Yeah, did you know that was coming ahead of time?
We did, and we asked our fulfillment distribution partners, like, how should we prepare? And it was, I think, the 5th or the 6th episode. And so they didn't really know yet, like what that, kind of what the reaction would be. And so we had, they had said, well, let's wait and hold off, and I'm like, no, I'm getting a print run going because even if this doesn't, we're going to sell it afterwards. So I felt confident about, kind of spending there. But yeah, it was a surprise.
So we have a question from Coralie that was submitted via Board Game Geek asking about a game we haven't talked about yet, the co-op game Hot Shots about firefighters, and asking, do you ever go into heavy research for your games, especially for Hot Shots? Does the use of a theme ever result in field trips to do research and consult experts? And then what's the most interesting experience you've had when researching for a potential game?
That's a good question. We haven't taken any field trips yet. Lots of research. Hot Shots in particular. That one started with this little reader that I had when I worked in educational publishing. We would we would develop and get to take home these little readers, and so one of them was on Hot Shots. It wasn't called Hot Shots, but it was firefighters in wild areas, and I found it fascinating, everything that they did, and I showed it to Justin, and he got just as fascinated. And then he started going online and reading about Hot Shots and what they do and stories about them, and so he did a lot of research around what tools that they use and that sort of thing, and so that was used for Hot Shots. Now we are going to do a Kickstarter to bring it back with an expansion, and for the expansion, we do have access to, because a lot of Hot Shots have reached out to us and said, this is an amazing game, I can't believe how you captured what it is that we do, and lots of fantastic feedback. And so now we have lots of resources available to us. So when Justin works on that expansion, we will be using that expert advice for that, so, and make sure we capture what Hot Shots are looking for.
Interesting.
So how do you, though, deal with something like that? So when you research, I found that when people tend to research into games and do this, the games tend to have exceptions and special rules and all kinds of extra stuff to add that theme to the game. You can do this every time, except, as was known in the case of the Great Fire of Uka Puka, you can't do this on page 32. How do you keep it still family and yet keep the history involved?
Yeah. Well, I think, you have to find a way that you can kind of trim away, those edge cases, and still, and still involve, like, for example, with like Hot Shots, we have special tokens. So we talk, now I can't even remember what it's called, but the special material that they pull over themselves when they are caught in a fire and it has to run over them. So we made that like one of its special tokens, and so you can use that in circumstances that are already part of the main part of the game. So you don't have to have charts and graphs to figure out when you can or can't play it. So does that make sense? Just to try to dovetail it in, that experience in with what's already working, or a mechanic, or a sequence that's already part of the gameplay, instead of creating something new for it.
Adding one new mechanism is okay, but more than one would be a problem.
Yeah. I mean, I think the one mechanism should incorporate those special conditions, so that the way that one mechanism operates, speaks to how those are used.
Let me ask a question about cooperative games in general. So, and this is a debate I have with many people online, but how often should you win a co-op game?
Oh, I think winning like 45% of the time feels good. I tend toward kind of it tough enough just to make you want to come back and defeat it. So and I'll say like that your experience with the game should upset that balance. So maybe when you're starting off, you might lose like 60% of the time, and then as you learn the game, you might lose 40% of the game, so that your experience with it matters. Why? What do you think?
Oh, I think it should be 50, but 45 and 50 aren't terribly far apart. It's just that games get harder and harder. One of the things I liked about Castle Panic was the game itself was not particularly hard until you added in one or more of the expansions, and it does become hard. It gives you that variety where you can make it hard, but not so much.
Yeah.
Do you find that if it's too easy that it shies people away from the game, though? If you win on your first play of a co-op game, some people say, well, do I even need to play this again? I've beaten this.
That's exactly it. Yeah, that's why I like that slightly harder. And so that and for you to be able to see that there's a way that I can, and if I do play this better, I'm going to get a higher win ratio. So just to encourage them to, come back to it.
Nick has a question. He says, is there a mechanism that you've struggled with, but you really like to bring it to a family-esque game?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure that there's a mechanism, that we struggle with. It's usually a matter of, struggling with how to fit a mechanism in with a theme and with other mechanisms that are operating. Like right now with Hem Helsing, we're working on deck building with kind of this dungeon crawl and this like mega boss monster thing. And so that's one of the things that, when we were at Dice Tower, Justin was, playtesting that, and it's how to make those decks feel unique for each person playing, but then also allowing for kind of a market and buying that, that doesn't dilute the unique decks so much that you're not feeling like, Ham or Ronan or, one of the characters that you're playing. And so, I don't think that I have kind of a catch-all answer to that so much as it just takes a lot of grinding on that design and working that against, what else is working, what isn't working, and pulling out what's not working and finding a way to fuse together the things that feel good.
This guy named Chris says, what fireside game do you wish more people took a look at?
In the catalog right now, we get lots of good looks about. In some ways, I want to say dastardly dirigibles. And maybe that's the best answer. We're getting a lot of good looks on that one right now. That I think Z Garcia has actually had it in like 3 of his most overlooked card games videos, and that's one where I really think that we, as soon as it sells out, and we're fairly close with it, but I think we could bring that back and retheme it. I love steampunk, but I think sometimes people don't take a look at that as a card game because they first are sorting for, do I like steampunk or not, so.
Would that be one of those titles that you felt really good about at the time and things don't land quite as well as you expect? Does that happen a lot, that you expect a particular reaction and it just doesn't land?
Well, the reaction with that one was actually really strong at the beginning, but that was also at the beginning of the whole like one and done, culture, which is why when Hot Shots sold out, we were like, well, let's not reprint it because people they're not buying that, a title again. I think we were wrong about that one. I think we could have kept that one in print. But yeah, it hit strongly. It's just that I think it could even, still have a longer life with it. I think Grackles is probably a better example of one that didn't hit strong, from the beginning, and I think is overlooked. It's probably my fault. It's an abstract strategy game, and I really toyed with, should I make it just look abstract strategy, or should I put a light theme on it, and I really think that when people see Grackles, they expect, especially with our brand, because we do have a lot of, the theme matters a lot. So they think that, somehow that the gameplay is going to involve the nature of Grackles, and that we're going to go deeper with that theme. And it was really like, let's put Birds on a Wire. And quite frankly, Birds on a Wire was taken as a name, as a game name. So I couldn't, yeah, that's one where I feel like, my choice in kind of packaging took away from the gameplay. So, but any time I've ever had anyone sit down and play that, they're like, this is a really fun game. It hits that abstract strategy feel really strongly.
So Castle Panic is a big family game and can play well with kids. But then you went even younger with My First Castle Panic. Can you tell us a little bit about the design process and thought process that went into making essentially a young kids game?
Yeah. So I have to credit, first of all, retailers, because we had kind of a list of like, what would you like for us to do next with Castle Panic, and they all were like, hands down, we want a preschool version. I think that would do really well. So I have to credit retailers first, on that. And then as far as the process went, it was just a matter of like, how do you streamline this? And how do I kind of enter into like the headspace of a 4-year-old and the decisions that they need to make and what's challenging for a 4-year-old? And it was really important to us because like you can play Castle Panic as like a 5-year-old because it's cooperative with your whole family. But we wanted to foster independence with my first Castle Panic. So we wanted no reading. We wanted it to involve skills that they're trying to learn at 4 and 5 years old. We wanted them to be able to teach the game to other 4 and 5-year-olds so that they really felt like it was their game. And truly, like, people will call it like when kids, preschoolers come up to us at conventions, we've had them dead asleep on parents' shoulder, and then the parent says, look, it's my first Castle Panic. They brighten up like out of a dead sleep, and they're like, my game, and they really see it as like they call it their game. They have such ownership for it, And so we really wanted to find a way to streamline. So instead of the 6 ways to get to the castle and the 6 towers, all they need is that one path to that one castle and that one wall, and matching the colors and shapes, which is at their learning ability. And instead of trying to juggle the swordsmen, archers, and knights and that sort of thing. So, and I think Justin did the game design on that, and he did an excellent job. Just hit it out of the park. And one of the things that we did is we took it to daycares, and we also did black and white and print and plays with like 50 different families. And first of all, at the daycare center, we had them divided up into these little groups, and we thought they'll take their turns. They did not take their turns. They played a turn, and then they were shouting to the other groups and said, come over here and play this game. This is so much fun. And they would teach them how to, and they would step away to let the other children like play a turn. And I've never seen like that level of cooperation of 4-year-olds. They're like, if they're having fun, they want to, play themselves. And they were sharing the game with each other, teaching it to each other. They played for hours and just cycled in and out, playing together. The daycare provider, the person, she was like washing dishes. She was like, I can't believe I'm actually like able to let them like do this on their own, and I can get things done. And we're like, well, that's going to be a selling point to parents. And the only reason they stopped playing is that the parent showed up to pick them up, and that was the only reason they stopped playing. And then the 50 families that we sent the black and white copies to, they said they printed out, they played them, and they could not, 201, none of them could put the game away. The kids were like, no, I want to play it every morning, before school, and when they got home from school, they wanted to play, and we were like, okay, we've got a hit here. So
I'd like to see more preschool playtesting groups.
Yeah.
I wonder how many other games would benefit from that technique.
Yeah.
Man, I would love, I know that's probably problematic with recording kids. I'd love to see like a video of that. The preschoolers there.
So fun.
Bonnie has a question for you. How do you choose a theme for a game? Do you have a list of themes to avoid or themes that are most desired? And I like to add to this, I'm a bit curious on this because you range from, hey, Castle Panic and put out the forest fires to bloodsuckers and defend the bar from zombies and dead panic, which are very, very, they're not like blood and guts all over the cover, but they're still darker themes.
Right, yeah. I would say, honestly, like, there are themes, like, whatever appeals to us, we think that there's going to be, an audience that wants that same thing. So we don't like test the themes so much as we think about what we want, and what's a game that, innately kind of appeals to us. And we go with that. And I do have kind of a list of things that themes that I would like for us to develop. but it also has to mesh well with the mechanics. And I personally like to start with the theme first and then figure out like what feels good to play that. But of course I haven't been able to get around to game design in a while. But and I think Justin is mainly the same way. Although he has started with mechanics before and then found the theme that works with that. So he's more flexible as a designer that way, I think. But yeah, I do kind of have a list of things. But the next one we have coming up, since we're working with an IP, the theme kind of caught itself,
Sure.
And yeah.
We've sort of danced around the second edition of Castle Panic, but I'd love to revisit that a little bit. As you got to revisit the game.
Yeah.
What opportunities did you take with the opportunity to open it up and say, what can we change here, rather than just reprinting what you already had?
Yeah. The biggest thing for me was, I cannot tell you how many mothers and daughters would come up to me at conventions and say, we love Castle Panic, but we really would like, there to be kind of female warriors that we could, see that, female defenders that are part of it, and to be honest with you, first edition art was done in 1 month. Justin did the art, and it was just like go. And, I still can't believe that I didn't put any more thought into diversity in that, first one. So the whole time it's been out and doing well, I'm meanwhile going, I can't believe I don't have, strong representation, for people to see themselves in this game. So we took the opportunity to make sure that, everyone who enjoys playing this game can see themselves in the game. So I feel really good about that. And then also to readdress the colorblind issues that were in the first edition. We had thought that we had selected a red and green that worked well with red and green, colorblind issues, but a retailer told me that she discovered her son had a form of red-green colorblind problems because of Castle Panic. I'm like, well, we didn't do that right the first time, so we were able to.
No, just say your game's an educational tool at that point.
Yeah, exactly. Inadvertently, exactly. A diagnostic tool. So yeah, we took the opportunity to put better filters on. We picked a red and green that worked better with red-green colorblindness, put filters on for, all the different types of colorblind issues. And then we put symbols on each of the rings so that you can use the symbols to make the matching instead of having to rely on the color at all. And then we spelled out the color on cards, and anytime you rely on color, we've written it out as well. So we are able to address those colorblind issues in a variety of ways. And then there are a few of the expansions where Justin kind of cleaned up some monster types. It's real fine details, but things that it's like, well, no, that's more of a boss monster, or that's a mega boss, or and so he was able to kind of cut out some classification and kind of clean some of that up. So.
Alrighty, well, it's time to talk about games. Yes, games. Anne-Marie, is there anything you've been playing lately that you've really been enjoying?
Well, I played Splendor Duel at Dice Tower West and really enjoyed that.
Did you bring your own copy?
No, I played a convention copy.
Well, I only say that because it was quite busy, that particular game. That was a tough one to get a hold of.
Yeah, I know. We got it. Someone brought it back and put it in the bin, and I'm like, oh, I'll just pick that right out of the bin.
That's it, folks. If you want to play a hot game at a convention, hang out in the library. But so why do you like the game? And do you like Splendor? Do you like this better?
Personally, I like Splendor better because I like having the choice of which colors I want to pick up, as opposed to having a restricted choice based on the random placement of the jewels on the little track. So for that reason, I prefer the original.
Wow, this is interesting. I think you're the first person to say that.
I know.
That's hot take here.
I know, right?
I think I might enjoy the full version as well.
Oh, wow. All right, the bandwagon now. Me too.
Sure.
What about you, Eric?
So for me, I finally got a chance to play Heat. I tried to play this on the Dice Tower Cruise, and it was always out. I never got a chance to play it, but thanks to it being in the Hot Games room, I was finally able to sit down and play Heat. This is the new Days of Wonder racing game that uses sort of a deck building mechanism where all of the cards you add to your deck are bad, and a lot of the mechanisms are about removing those wear cards, those heat cards.
They're like 70% bad. You need heat sometimes.
You do. It's all about managing it. There's certain aspects that you want to be able to add heat to your decks. You want to make sure you have a little bit available to be able to move more quickly in a tight spot, to be able to take a corner more quickly. It's very tactical. It's hard to stay in the lead for very long because there's a lot of ways that the people behind can catch up. But I found it to be a lot of fun. I can see why folks are excited about it. I did not play with any of the weather or the extra mechanisms. It was just a basic game. So I really want to try it with all those extra tokens and the photographers and stuff like that. But yeah, I can see why folks are clamoring to play Heat. It was a good one.
So that's interesting. A lot of people, like, do you want to have a catch-up mechanic? But did you feel like the catch-up mechanic was overpowered?
It's just a little bit of a boost. You get, I think, just one extra movement, but it's all about how you use that extra movement if you're that far behind. And I think they also get to get rid of an extra heat card.
Okay.
So it's not a ton. It's not like you're flying ahead of everybody. But if you jockey in the right position, you also get to move last if you're behind. So you can position exactly where you need to be. Whereas if you're first, you have to just sort of make your move, and then people move around you.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to fall too far behind in any game. It's weird. I'm not a big fan, Anne-Marie, of rubber banding in a game that keeps people unnaturally together.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I don't know if you've ever played Formula D. I've definitely played games of Formula D where I was like, I don't know why I'm rolling the dice anymore. Because you're so far behind, you cannot catch up.
Yeah. And so, like, as kind of a counter, example, I played Acquire for the first time at Dice Tower West as well. And I, at the beginning, I was like, is this the kind of game where, like, you make a bad decision at the beginning and then forget it, and it wasn't. I was really surprised. I was able to catch up. I think I came in second, overall. And, I wasn't seeing it at the beginning, but, there are opportunities to play and kind of buy the stocks and to get better. And as you're improving, you're able to, play better, and that, that allows for the catch up, but not unnaturally so. So, yeah, I know what you mean.
I got a copy from someone in the Vegas area of Mega Acquire. I haven't played it yet, but it's hexagons instead of squares. Also, there's more things. I don't know. The box is long and thin. It can't fit on a Kallax shelf. It looks like, a game made 20 years ago, but I'm still kind of intrigued by it, mostly because they stuck the word or the prefix mega in there. So.
Yeah.
Wait, was this like a fan design, or was this actually a published version of Acquire?
It's a published game. I think it's a legit thing you can just do. The game is called Mega Acquire. I don't know what the legalities are, Eric.
Huh. Okay. How about you, Tom? What have you played recently?
Well, I'll tell you what I ate at Dice Tower West was dim sum. They had a nice little Chinese restaurant there, which is an excellent one. You've been there, Eric.
Yes, indeed.
An excellent dim sum. And I say this because the next game is about dim sum. Steam Up. Steam Up is one of the prettiest games I've ever seen. It comes with the little dim sum baskets, has a little rubbery dim sum that you put in the baskets. And as soon as I saw this game, I was like, this game is going to be amazing because I like dim sum and I like cute game pieces and all. It's okay. Basically, the game is you have some actions on your turn. Many of those actions are take dim sum tokens. And if a basket in your area ever, let's say there's like a green, or I don't remember what the dim sum are called, but like a green, red, and yellow dim sum, and I have those 3 tokens, I can spend those to take that basket, and then that dim sum is worth points to me at the end of the game. That's all well and good, and you can rotate the dim sum, and you can do things. The problem is, the game comes with these action cards that you can play that will wildly change things. Don't ever sit there assuming you're going to do something on your turn. You need to wait till your turn's on, buddy, because I'm going to do some crazy thing and mess the whole board up. And also, the player powers are clearly unbalanced. And I hate saying that because, you normally a designer publisher can say, well, they just seem unbalanced. No, they are unbalanced this time. Mathematically, they're off. And I don't know, that bugs me a little bit, right?
It's such a pretty game, though.
It really is. I mean, I'm still putting it in the Dice Tower library, at least for a while, because I know people are going to want to play it. Yeah. And as long as you don't mind the chaotic craziness of these baskets spinning around and the cards, I mean, it's very, very light. If you can get into that mode, almost a Munchkin style mode, I think you would enjoy it.
All right, Anne-Marie, anything else for you?
We also played Dice Throne.
Traditional or Marvel?
Traditional.
Ooh, who did you play?
I can't remember. It was so we played with there are 2 starting characters, and I played. She's blue. I
am now on a hunt to figure this out.
Who is the blue one in Dice Throne?
Right. If you can remember, let me know.
Well, I'm looking. Let's see. Maybe it's the Moon Elf?
Yes, Moon Elf. Yes, that's
Boom.
what I played.
How's it feel, Eric?
Yes.
Problem solved.
Yes. And so they recommend like the first time you play without the cards, which was like, so we did. And that was, to me, completely ridiculous. Then we played with it.
Does it actually say that in the rule book to play without the cards?
No, like your first time. And I'm like, that made no sense to me. But we did. We, like, I will trust you, and I won that one. But then when, we played with the cards, Justin, beat me with that one. He built up his defenses and he was able to kind of block just about everything I was doing, plus deal damage to me. So, but anyway, yeah, that was, there's so much hype around it. I'll say that I thought that I was just going to be blown away, and I just enjoyed it,
Sometimes hype can be tricky that way.
Yeah. It was. I mean, it was good, and I really liked. I like what the cards are doing. I like how it plays well, but I don't know. I guess sometimes you're right. Something can get so much hype that you expect it to just rock your world and be like so different from anything, but it's good. I would play it again.
Cool. So I have a dice game as well to talk about. It's called Mega Man Adventures. This is a cooperative game. It's from what's the name? Blacklist Games. Yeah, that's right. It's a co-op dice rolling game. You're working through the minions of Dr. Wily, the various evil robots based on the video game. And you have cards that aid each other, that provide dice for working your way through challenges. You might be facing something that says you need to get 2 jump icons, and then you need to get doubles, and then do a shoot icon, and then you need to do a third activity to get through this challenge card. Otherwise, you're going to take damage. And at the beginning of your turn, you take 2 cards that you play for yourself, and then 2 cards that are played for your teammates, and that's your dice that you will get for your turn. And you're going to roll, and people can play extra cards on your turn. You can trigger abilities and stuff, and you're trying to get through all the challenges, or else you're going to take damage. And if you ever run out of damage or too many lives, you lose the game. But if you succeed, then you move on to successive rounds and hopefully defeat the bad guy. Mechanically, It sort of works. It can be pretty punishing because it's a dice game.
Sorry, Eric, I'm laughing already because I'm feeling apologetic defense come out here, but go ahead.
I am very confused by this game. The whole thing is packaged like it is Mega Man 1, 2, and 3, the first games of the old NES era. And it has robots and villain cards from Mega Man 1, 2, and 3. But if you're going to play a campaign game, you don't play Mega Man 1, 2, and 3. There's no reason why they've separated them into different boxes or different cards or anything. You're supposed to just shuffle them all together, and you do one round, and then a second round, and a final round. It's not Mega Man 1, 2, and 3. And why they've packaged it that way is breaking my brain. And it took me a while. It was a hindrance in learning the game because they presented it in this way. And I kept saying, well, where am I supposed to separate these into 1, 2, and 3? And that's not what you're supposed to do. And so the rule book and my assumptions based on the way it was put together clashed in many ways. And I think that was a detriment to enjoying the game. So I'm only middling on Mega Man Adventures.
I'm just not convinced that Mega Man should be a board game.
This is, I think, better than other versions. This is the closest they've gotten.
It would not take much. The other version, Mega Man the board game from Jasco, is ranked 23,860 on Board Game Geek. That's, where is that? That is just below a game called Headache, which is also terrible, from 1968, if you've ever played that game. And it's
This feels like you're working through stages. You get weapons when you defeat a boss, which is kind of cool, and they all operate differently. So better than the Jasco game, for sure.
All right, well, real quick, I have not yet finished playing this game, and I think I can honestly say I never will be. But I'm in the middle of playing a game called Aeon's Trespass Odyssey.
Okay.
I didn't talk about this last time, did I?
No.
Okay. Just to be clear, it has nothing to do with Aeon's End. It just has the word Aeon in it. This is easily the biggest game I've ever played. It comes in a box the size of Kingdom Death Monster, and in fact looks like a white Kingdom Death Monster box. But it's set in a post-Greece era. All the gods have been killed. And so you wake up on this mega ship. It's like a ship that's the size of a city. And now that the gods are dead, these humongous creatures are attacking and destroying stuff. And one is attacking your ship as soon as you wake up. So you fight back by getting into this gooey gel and controlling the Titans. You know, the things that fight against the Greek gods?
Yeah.
So you control these Titans, kind of like Avatar or Pacific Rim or whatever, I don't know. And so you fight against these things. So there's this big boss battle. And then when the boss battle's done, you go through this humongous, I'm not exaggerating here, choose your own adventure. I have never seen so much text in a game. It is mind-boggling huge amounts of text. And so many different paths and things. And so far, immensely satisfying. Humongous rule book. I'm probably playing 25 rules wrong. But I'm fascinated by this game. See, the Kingdom Death Monster thing didn't really appeal to me because the theme is so dark. You know, it's and misogynist and a whole bunch of other stuff too. But this is still a darker theme, but you're like sailing the ship around on a map that looks like Seventh Continent and finding different islands. We're in, you know, is it Minoa? In Minoa right now, looking for the Minotaur and Theseus and stuff like that, looking to find weapons and occasionally Titans. We'll find like a floating Titan in the water, so we stick them on our ship because we'll use them. Because if your Titan dies in battle, you don't die, the Titan dies. But if we run out of Titans, we'll lose the whole campaign. So we need to keep our stock of them high.
Okay.
It's really fascinating. It's not for everybody, though. That says it's a 300-hour game. I believe it.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. What do you want me to say?
All right. So in 2027, when you finish it.
I don't know. I've played it for 6 hours so far.
So are you playing it solo?
No, I got a gang together to play it. of like-minded people who like this style game, and we're playing through it. But yeah, I don't know that I could play it solo. I mean, I guess I could. I could do anything I want. But you control, in the battles, you're controlling 4 characters with a whole bunch of stuff. It feels like that would be very difficult to control all them.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
name again, that's Aeon's
Trespass: Odyssey.
Okay. Well, Anne-Marie, thank you so much for hanging out with us. This has been a pleasure.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun. Appreciate it.
So if folks want to know what you're up to, what Fireside Games is up to, where is the best place to look?
FiresideGames.com. On our blog, we usually blog about, what's happening, the big stuff. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. So
okay.
Yeah.
All the things.
All the things.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. I'm really looking forward to the new stuff from your company and seeing you as the year and all the different convention stuff. Thanks so much for coming on the show. Thank you, Eric, for putting everything together. And thank you all for watching. Until next time, though, I'm Tom Vassell.
And I'm Eric Summerer.
And you've been watching or listening to At the Table.
Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you again in 2 weeks when our guest will be game illustrator Andrew Bosley. At the Table is produced by Tom and me with assistance from Roy Kennedy, Wendy Yee, and Chris Yee. Concise instructions for brewing chamomile, jasmine, and rose tea provided by Heat, Petal to the Kettle. Our theme is written by Timothy Pinkham, arranged by Dave Culling, and support for everything at the Dice Tower comes from viewers and listeners like you. Reach out to us on Facebook or Twitter, or to Tom at Dicetower.com or Eric at Dicetower.com. Until we see you again from all of us at the table, have fun gaming.